reports they are not the only journalists in the war zone.
There's never been a war quite like it.
They're called the Embeds, and they are carrying the brunt of the reporting in this most reported war ever. In a sweep along with advancing American lines, their work is dirty, it is dangerous, and very often it is damn compelling to watch. The Embeds. And if you are not an Embed, but you're still covering this war, then what are you? The military's term for that is unilateral. I am a unilateral. It says so right on my military issue press card. So is everyone else on my team up here near the Iraq-Kuwait border. Our producer, our cameraman, soundman, translator, we are all unilaterals.
I encourage again all the news organizations to exercise the utmost care and judgment with respect to how they are asking their reporters to cover this conflict.
There's been a fair amount of attention given to us unilaterals over the past few days at Pentagon briefings, in part because at least 2 journalists in the unilateral category have been killed since Friday. 2 others are missing. Which raises the question, why even cover this war as a unilateral in the first place? What's the benefit? Well, in theory, it's being able to see what happens outside the military bubble that the Embeds travel in, seeing the war at one remove, moving among and hearing from Iraqi civilians, figuring out what the damage is, what the casualties are, gauging how well the humanitarian aid is moving. In short, if Embeds are always moving with the troops, unilaterals get to see what happens after they've passed through. The problem is, it's easier said than done. For example, getting into Iraq in the first place. The military's not going to take you in, so it's up to you to get there. How to get across a border the Kuwaiti government has closed? Here's how. Here's actually what we did this past weekend. Blocked at the border, we traveled about a mile east and found a gap in the berm. A berm is a massive, miles-long pile of sand used in this part of the world as a demarcation line for the no man's land that separates one country from another. Literally what we did, this was on Saturday morning, was we drove through a break in the berm, and we drove straight across the no man's land. On the far side, that line on the horizon, that is southern Iraq. From there, it was literally through a hole in the fence. This is the actual border fence, and 5 minutes later, we were in Iraq, out of our cars and chatting with a crowd of Iraqis in a town called Safwan. Safwan, we knew, was famous for 2 things. It's where the Iraqis negotiated the ceasefire at the end of the last Gulf War, and this week it was where these pictures were taken, scenes of jubilation over the American assault on Saddam, which incidentally were taken by a unilateral Kuwaiti news crew. What did going to Safwan unilaterally get us? Well, an understanding that just because the Iraqis don't like Saddam doesn't mean they like us for trying to take him out. To the contrary, although people started out talking to us in a friendly way, after a while it became a little tense. These people were mad at America, very mad, and they wanted us to know why. It was because, they said, people in town had been shot at by the United States. This wounded man in the back of a truck, they said, was no soldier. He was a civilian who had just been out fetching water. It was because, they said, they needed more food and water. Where's the aid they demanded? Where's the medicine for our children that Bush promised? It was because, and recall these people have heard years of anti-American propaganda and suffered under years of economic sanctions, it was because there is no reason in their personal experience to see Americans as the good guys, any more than if, say, Israel had invaded their country and deposed Saddam. In fact, that's what they wanted to know. Are the Israelis coming next? Is America staying here forever? Why are you taking over Iraq? That's how the people in this crowd saw it. Takeover, not liberation.
Okay, so we're going to pack up.
By the time we left, kids were banging on our car windows, demanding money and food. They had already stolen some radios from our cars, and a telephone, and a camera. It just wasn't dancing in the streets. What else did we see by going in as unilaterals? The close-up view of collateral damage. The U.S. says it's trying to limit injuries to civilians. It is, however, hard not to take it personally when that collateral damage is you. There was a British unit near Safwan treating wounded Iraqis believed to be civilians. This man, who said he was a bus driver, was shot this weekend and driven to the British by a friend. Even as he was treated and he was deeply in shock, His friend cursed these soldiers and America because his friend, the wounded man, had also lost his wife this weekend. She was collateral damage. So were his two brothers. So were his two children. As unilaterals, we also saw that when the military declares an area under control, that has a narrower meaning than we at first understood. Safwan is under control in the sense that there's nothing there to stop the coalition's armor from rolling through. However, within just a few miles of this stretch of highway, journalists were shot at and chased by Iraqi troops. Here's a photo one of our crew took Saturday of reporters who had circled the wagons near a British unit just for a sense of security. This morning, the last of that group left Iraq because the situation was getting too unsettled. Paul Harris is a security specialist, a former British soldier, traveling with the crew from the BBC.
And these towns, the town you were near, Safwan, is controlled, is conquered in any way?
In a military sense, yes, of course, because they've been through and they've taken out anything that might be of danger to, their operation. There's no law and order for a start.
No law and order?
None at all. There's no police left.
Yeah.
So in civilian terms, then no, it isn't safe.
To us, one of the most telling pictures of what it's like in there was captured by the BBC as they departed today. This young man with the Iraqi flag, and he's no soldier, wouldn't dare show those colors and the sentiment behind it to a convoy of U.S. military